Hey guys, it's Jonathan here. This is my first attempt at recording myself doing homework for the virtual reality scene that was assigned for us for First Take Masterclass Week 1. I've always wanted to do this, me being a trainer and all. I love to share my experiences, and also when I read this script after it was sent out, I thought, wow, there's a lot of little nooks and crannies that we can get into with the homework and provide some good examples. My goal is to walk you through it. I'm also going to do a video on exactly the homework process and the steps of it, and getting down to actually how to approach the homework in terms of concepts and terminologies that we use, like bones and questions and things like that. But this video is specifically geared to just watch me go through it and actually just watch the process rather than really explain. So it's going to really be focused on the content and what is going to be used to give me my improv monologue, which I'll do in class next week. Right, so this script is called Melissa, and it's also a nice 4 pages, so not too long, not too short. First thing you want to do with the homework is to go through and look at the bones. So I'm going to just highlight text that I believe are bones, and for me, bones is essentially facts, right, in the script. So I'm just going to go through and highlight what I think are relevant bones. So here we're in a hospital, so we're going to highlight that. That's a bone, and Laura and Melissa are sitting in the front pew. Let's see if this works here. It's the first time I'm doing it with Camtasia on, so let's choose this tool here. Anyway, Laura and Melissa sit in the front pews. What else? Melissa remembers Laura in the trial, from the trial. That's another bone, specifically. Oops. From the trial. Sitting in the front row, not really a bone or something I think is relevant, unless there's something else in the script that will allude to the position of where they were sitting. And she was pregnant. So we'll kind of identify that as a bone. I heard about Nathan, is another bone. Nathan was the foreman of the jury that convicted my boyfriend. That's a big bone. And another bone is I never blamed any of them. Looks like Laura thinks I called him. Apparently, he called me, so that's another big bone. And he called me because he wanted to know about Evan and about our relationship. So I'd say that's another bone worth noting. The highlighting looks a little weird because I converted the actual image into using character recognition, so I can highlight stuff. So it's not highlighting all the words, but I'm pretty sure you get the idea as I go through this. We met at the store where he worked, and I was trying to paint one of the sisters' bedrooms. As I read through the entire script, there are certain facts which are stated here that didn't really stand out to me, so I'm not going to highlight all of those as bones, even though they are. I'm just going to go through the ones that I think need to be addressed for me to, as Nancy puts it, get through the scene and to, you know, build the history that I need for my improv monologue. But what might be as we go through this is you know, I offered to buy him dinner, but he still insisted on picking up the check. That's a small bone. That tells me that it alludes to Evan's character, that he's a gentleman. So just gonna highlight it because as you see when you get a little bit here down here later, there are a couple things, especially his last words before he is executed, which will lead toward what okay, so here's a big bone. I was there when they put the needle in his arm, and I watched the chemicals pumping. So this whole paragraph is a big bone. And of course, I was crying, and but here's a really huge one that stood out to me. Was there's a God whence proceed so many evils. Now this is a quote from the Bible, and so we're going to want to look that up. In addition, there is this mention to Boethius, and it actually goes together with those. I just so happen to know this story, but if you didn't know the story or were familiar with the Bible, it's in quotes, and of course they don't write anything in the script unless there's some sort of reason. So some kind of quote like this you're going to want to look up, see if somebody famous said it, and then this, you know, why is she searching on Google for this word? Well, if she's searching for it, I definitely want to know what it's about, right? So that's halfway through the script. Again, these are just bones that we're going to go through. The second half of the script is a cemetery, and I can tell that this is a feature, right? Because we've got 95 pages sort of toward the end, right? So whereas all of this stuff that was going on for the first 2 pages of our script was sort of toward the end of the second act, maybe, you know, page 59 and page 60. So we're in the cemetery, and we can see Laura and Michael walking through, and they bring flowers, and we see a name and prisoner number on the headstone. So name and prisoner number on the headstone, and that being Evan, who, from what if we read earlier, is my boyfriend. And as they shoot out, it's Melissa standing at the gravesite, right? It's Melissa standing at the gravesite. She turns to see Laura Michael towards her. She's crying. Laura asks, how am I holding up? I think that's an important bone. And she says, all this time he was trying to help us, save us from the killer. Now remember, right now, all we're doing is just identifying facts. Just bones. We don't want to make any judgment about any of it. So, you know, save who from the killer. That's going to come in later, you know, when we start doing our questions. Like, who is he, for example, right? And then this new guy, George, is introduced. So that's a big bone. Now, Evan came to see me last night. He wanted me to tell you thank you. Now that tells me, wait, didn't Evan get executed? So that's something kind of weird going on here, right? And Laura is sorry we weren't able to help him sooner. And Laura, I say he doesn't take it personally. So another big bone. Okay, and then I say there's something else. What is it? He says that Jacob is there with him. Another bone. And that he is looking forward to being with his mommy when the time comes. And Laura starts to tear. Okay. Until then, he'll keep an eye on for you. And Laura asks if he could give Jacob a big kiss. Right? And of course, they're at the bone. So right now, these are my bones. And then, so the second thing we want to do is we want to go in and we want to start asking questions about our bones. You know, like for here at the hospital, why, you know, why are they at the hospital? Other questions could be also why are they at the chapel? Chapel specifically? I mean, they could be anywhere in the hospital. So why specifically the chapel? And then I remember, regarding me remembering Laura at the trial, one question that I want to ask is, you know, what is the trial? What was the trial about? Who was on trial? What was the case about? Maybe it's more better. Who was on trial? Why was I at the trial? Why was I there? Then we go, I heard about Nathan, I couldn't believe it. So now we go to this Nathan guy. Know nothing about him, so, you know, who's Nathan? How did I hear about Nathan? So we know Nathan is the foreman, as it's answered here, right? But when I already know that he's the foreman, but who is Nathan from the perspective of why is he important? So maybe the question is more, why is Nathan significant, perhaps? And we see that a little bit later because Nathan actually calls me, as we saw when we did the bones. So we know all about that and stuff. So it looks like, you know, we can see that from my first question, the trial was about my boyfriend, right? So I can start answering questions. What was the case about? Looks like a potential answer is my boyfriend was on trial and convicted. And, you know, if we didn't have that piece of bone, then we might have to speculate a little bit more about the type of the trial. We can do that again. Again, we don't want to make any assumptions, but based upon things that we've read later on in the script and bones that we've highlighted, well, I'll get to it when we get to that part. I never blamed any of you, so you know, a question could be, why not? Why don't I blame anyone? And then we want to do potential answers. But again, I'm gonna just jot down all my questions and not make any prejudgments. Why don't I blame anyone? I mean, it was my boyfriend, right? And then he called me, right? So here's if I want to go stick to the letter of the law, for example, I'm going to want to go, my question could be who is quote unquote he, right? But we can presume from the evidence based in the words that he is Nathan. But it could also be Evan. Is it, who is he? Evan. Nathan. I don't think there's anybody mentioned yet to this point. Could it be Michael? I mean, we already know that Michael's involved. There's a Michael that walks with Laura to visit the grave of Evan. So this is a great example of asking questions and then providing possible answers. It's kind of obvious, but maybe it's not to you as you read this. But you choose the best answer out of the question that you pose, and in this instance, that obvious answer would be Nathan. So I'm gonna kind of select him there and go with that. And go. That's my final answer for who is he. Right, out of my options, it's going to be Nathan, just based on how the flow of the text goes. Right, to thank him for what he did. Okay, but actually that's another bone that I'm asked. And I suppose that's why you called him to thank him for what he did. "20 calls to this hospital." That's another bone. Right before he died. Okay. So why would I think? So that's a question. If I'm deciding this was Nathan, why would I thank the foreman of my boyfriend's jury that convicted him? Kind of weird, unless the boyfriend did something to me. But then it goes, I never blamed any of you. So there's kind of a contradiction in my mind, what's going on. Okay, so why would I think the foreman of there must be 20 calls? Actually, the question can be more specifically posed as, because that's not me. I'm not the one who's saying that, my character, Melissa. It's really, why would Laura, right? Laura think I wanted to thank the foreman of my boyfriend's jury that convicted him. So it's not really me, it's Laura. Then right before he died. So again, I'm supposing that he, in this case, was again Nathan. So he called me. So then the question is, who is he? But also, why would the foreman call me after the trial? Call me after the trial. I mean, usually it's, done and gone. And so, again, this is before Nathan died. So a question that so yeah, Nathan is my answer, so he's in bold. Why would the foreman call me after the trial? Another question would be, how long after the trial is this? Right? Is it a week, days, years? Who knows? Okay, so that's something we might want to determine. It may make a difference. So this kind of answered, he wanted to know about Evan and a relationship. So a question goes here is, why would, I mean, again, usually juries don't have any contact with the plaintiffs or defendants after a trial. And they're supposed to totally not be in contact with them. So there's something going on that I need to find out and reconcile. As Melissa, again, he wanted to know about Evan. So that's not just, and this is where we bring in another piece of homework, I need to have some kind of virtual reality about this, right? So I'm going to need to can I change the color on this? I don't usually do it on Acrobat, but it was the best way I thought to capture all of this on screen. But I could just make a comment here. VR. Virtual reality. What was conversation like with Nathan? Okay. Can I change the color? Set status. Properties. Hey, yeah, I could change that. So I'm going to make my VRs virtual. I'm going to use green for my VRs. Okay. So this is going to be a VR that I'm going to need to do. So I'm going to set this to the side. Usually I just write VR there on my script. Okay, and the yellows are going to be all questions and bones and stuff. Okay, so maybe I'll put it, yeah, I usually put on the right side, so I'm just going to leave it here. And here's another VR, right? Let's see if I can copy and paste this. Yeah, great. Now this is a big VR, and not only is this a virtual reality, watching a loved one being executed. Right? And that's going to be this whole, can I use this? This whole thing here. And we'll set that to green.